Hey everyone, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to Little Mountain Ranch. Welcome to my kitchen. I'm really happy to have you here with me today. I'm actually getting a very, very late start on all these projects today. It is 5:35 p.m. and I have a ton going on in the kitchen. I have lots of green tomatoes that I have all chopped up, lots and lots and lots of them. I have some tomato jam going on the stove, some pizza sauce going on the stove. My roaster oven is filled with tomatoes that I am currently cooking down. I haven't decided what I'm going to make with those yet. The reason that I'm getting such a late start today is our day just kind of got away from us. We ended up going to town and spending a whole bunch of time in town. And so we decided to bring pizza home for dinner tonight to make it super easy. So everybody's all eaten and on to their own activities, and I am going to get myself this canning done. As you can see over here, I have bins and bins of tomatoes. Those were the tomatoes that I harvested out of my high tunnel a couple of days ago now. I think it was about 3 days ago now. We had a hard frost. I accidentally left my high tunnel door open, and I was really concerned that I had killed off all my vines, but fortunately I didn't. So we actually decided to harvest all of our tomatoes that day, many of those being green, but fortunately a lot of them had already started blushing. And as long as a green tomato has a slight blush on it, it's pretty easy to ripen indoors. I actually have been pulling about the size of my large 20-quart roaster oven, at least I think it's 20 quarts, I'll show you in a second. Almost every day I've been able to fill it up over the last couple of days, and it's going to be that way moving forward for the next probably week or two. So we are going to have lots of tomato products, which is really exciting. We do still, however, have a ton of green tomatoes that we're going to need to do something with. So I have decided to make a green tomato salsa. So we're gonna make that today. I am going to make a green chili sauce that is supposed to be really good on hot dogs. And I'm doing the old-fashioned tomato jam that I already talked about over on the stove. What else am I gonna do here? I just printed off all my recipes. Green cherry tomato sweet relish. And of course, we're gonna be doing lots of other green tomato and tomato recipes over the next couple of weeks, but I want to get to at least these today because I have all of the prep done. I chopped up all the onions yesterday and I wanted to show you, where is that? My new food processor, which is a KitchenAid food processor. And I have never had a food processor before that has this particular attachment. If I can remember how to put this together. Whoops. I have never had a food processor that had this particular kind of attachment. Let's see. So this is what it looks like when it's all put together. So it has a square cutting blade, and then the blade on the inside spins, and it chops everything into these absolutely fabulously sized little cubes. So it's really, really fast. What used to take us hours to do, chopping up, I think we have 50 pounds or so of green tomatoes here, and then outside I have a whole bunch of chopped onions. They smelled so strongly that I had to put them outside, but it took us very little time, and we did all this chopping yesterday. So I'm really grateful for this. If you are looking for a food processor, the KitchenAid is a good one, and it does of course all the normal things that a food processor does, but that attachment, fantastic for canning season. So I have around 3 pounds of tomatoes in here, and they were chopped finely, and I've been cooking them down for the last 20 minutes or so. And this is going to be our tomato jam. I decided to do a small batch to start with and see how I like it. I have a feeling I am going to like it quite a lot, and then I'll do a larger batch if it's a hit. 3 kind of small to medium-sized tomatoes equals around a pound of tomatoes. So we need 3/4 cup of brown sugar. Okay, so we needed a 1/4 cup of lemon juice, which I just put in there. We need some grated ginger, which I do not have. The last recipe I needed called for grated ginger too. So I'm going to add around a 1/4 teaspoon of grated ginger, or ground ginger. We are going to add a little bit of salt, around 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of cumin, and a little bit of crushed red pepper flakes. But I have said before, we're not huge fans of super spicy, so I'm just gonna add a little bit. So this I plan on using with cheese and crackers. I usually make a whole bunch of red pepper jelly or green pepper jelly, which is has a little bit of heat to it. And I usually use that, but I think this is going to be really good as well. More of a savory topping for cheese and crackers than the sweet and spicy of the red pepper jelly. And we need half a teaspoon of garlic powder. And we aren't adding any pectin or any type of thickening agent to this, so we're actually going to cook it until it is the thickness that I'm going for, which is a jam consistency. I'm not sure how many tomatoes I have in this, but quite a few tomatoes, and I've been cooking these down for around 24 hours or so, maybe a little bit over in my roaster oven, and then I transferred them in here so that I could make room for more tomatoes in the roaster oven. And into this I have put oregano, garlic powder, lemon juice. What else did I put in here? A little bit of brown sugar. And I am just going to put this through my blender to make it nice and smooth. And then this is going to be pizza sauce. And I think this will probably do me for pizza sauce for the year, which is great. I think I'm gonna add a little bitty splash of balsamic vinegar. I love the savoriness that balsamic vinegar adds to tomato products, like anything that's or like an Italian kind of flavored sauce. What did I do with my spoon? Put it in the sink, of course. I like using my immersion blender, but only for things that I want to have a chunkier texture. If I want it to be super smooth, I always use my blender. As soon as this jam has cooked down, I am going to use this pot to make my salsa in. Let's give this a little bit of a taste. That is really tasty. It's quite sweet. I think the next batch I would probably cut down on the sugar a little bit, but it's a different kind of flavor, not a flavor that I've ever had before. I wouldn't say that I love it, but it's good. And I think it would definitely taste really good on like a crusty piece of bread with some butter, like a garlic bread or something like that with a little bit, because it has that bruschetta kind of flavor to it. On crackers and cheese for sure. You know, I think I might add a few more red pepper flakes because I definitely think it could use just a little tiny bit more of a kick to it. And I think I'm just gonna use my steam canner and get these going, except I have all my sauce to do as well, so we may as well fill the steam canner right up. This is only supposed to do 2 pints of jam. I think what I'm going to actually do is get my jars and put my jars beside me here and actually pour the pizza sauce right into the jars here, so I don't have to get another bowl to dump the pureed stuff into. I cannot recommend highly enough getting a lot of your prep work done if you're going to be doing a big canning project the day before, because canning can be kind of all-encompassing in the kitchen. It makes a huge mess, takes a ton of time, and if you divide that time up over a couple of days, it's way less overwhelming. It smells really good. Oops. One of the things that canning videos has really done, or creating canning videos for you has done over the last little while, is it has made me really think about why there's certain rules with certain things. Because in all the years I've been canning, over 20 years now, some of those rules have really changed over time. Some of them that were considered super unsafe 20 years ago, for instance, not sterilizing all of your canning lids and your jars and all of that before you canned. That was considered really unsafe, and now it's no longer recommended, because if you are canning for at least 10 minutes, you are sterilizing everything that you are using anyway. So one of the things I've been thinking about is tomatoes. And it is recommended with ripe tomatoes to peel your tomatoes, because botulism spores are actually a soil-borne bacteria that can get on the skin of a tomato. So it's a safer practice to peel your tomatoes just to eliminate that very, very, very slight risk of botulism from your tomato products. However, it is not recommended to do the same thing with green tomatoes or with peppers or with lots of other vegetables that we use in canning that are close to the ground and could potentially get splash up from the soil or anything like that on it. So I've just been thinking about that and why that would be. So here's what I've come up with, is that with red tomatoes, the riper a tomato, the less acid it has in it. So green tomatoes are a lot more acidic than red tomatoes are. Botulism spores can survive in an oxygen-deprived environment, but they don't survive well in highly acidic environments. So maybe because green tomatoes are very acidic, that's the reason why there's the discrepancy between needing to peel red tomatoes compared to green tomatoes. And most green tomato recipes that I've seen also have added acid to them as well. So I don't know if that's an extra precaution or if it's just not something that's really been tested. Red tomatoes being sort of the more common thing to can, so maybe most of the testing has been focused on red tomatoes. And then when it comes to peppers, peppers are generally canned in a more acidic environment as well, like pickled, for instance, added to salsas, which have a lot of acid in them via the vinegar, at least the salsas I make. So yeah, so if anyone else has any other thoughts around why there's certain vegetables that are close to the ground that we are supposed to peel for safety reasons, and those that we are not supposed to. There's been a resurgence in interest in canning over the last couple of years. So my hope is that there's going to be kind of further testing and studies done to update information to match with science, today's science. I am just about entirely out of pint jars, and I don't think that has ever happened. I've been doing more canning with pints this year than I usually do, apparently. Dan and I spent around a half an hour before filming this video cleaning the kitchen, if you can believe it. And I laughed and said to him that within 2 hours, I will have completely undone all of our work. The kitchen will be an absolute disaster again. Just grateful for the fact that we had pizza for dinner tonight, so the supper mess was very minor. I never use half pints. They're so cute. Okay, we're gonna need a funnel for scooping the jam. I have my steam canner on the stove back there. It is a Fruit Saver steam canner, and I absolutely love it. I've been using it, I think I bought it last year, and I use it often. Almost every time I need to water bath anything, I use my steam canner instead of my water bath canner. That steam canner fits 7 quarts. My water bath canner fits 9, but it takes so much longer to come up to temperature. I may need a 5th half pint. If you have any tomato recipes that you would like to share with me and see me make here on my channel over the next couple of weeks, because goodness knows we have a lot of tomatoes to go through, and my recipe repertoire is going to be maxed out fairly quickly, I think, definitely let me know down in the comment section and I will do it. I actually have one really delicious recipe that somebody sent me. I can't remember what it's called, but it is a tomato jam recipe, but a lot fancier than this. It has vanilla bean and a bunch of other fun ingredients in it that I definitely plan on trying. Okay, got my lids and my rings over here, but I'm certainly gonna need more than I prepared. I've only lost probably, I don't know, maybe 5 jars total out of the close to 1,000 that I've canned this year. So I consider that very good, and there is a definite possibility that it was operator error. Like maybe one of my jars had a bit of a crack in it that I didn't notice, or there was food on the edge of the jar That usually happens at least a couple times a year with me. Okay, some more clean lids here. Really running out of space. Just finger tight. Okay, into this, we are gonna throw a whole bunch of green tomatoes. In fact, I'm gonna fill this right up. The nice thing about chopping these tomatoes up yesterday is that a lot of the liquid came out of them overnight. I didn't add any extra salt or anything to extract extra liquid, but this is going to be nice. It's going to make a nice chunky salsa. So this is kind of like salsa verde. Salsa verde is a salsa that's generally made with tomatillos, and then it's pureed, so it's quite smooth. So this one was 10 pounds of tomatoes, yellow onions. So I'm just gonna grab my onions from outside here. I have some red onions and yellow onions. 12. And 6 jalapenos. So I already have those chopped up over here. So I'm just gonna add that many in there. You can add however many you like, depending on how hot you like things. We need some cilantro. So we need 2 cups of cilantro, but we can get this on the stove and get that started heating up. I learned something interesting from you guys when I made a video, I think midsummer, where I was making salsa. And I was saying that one of my daughters absolutely, actually 2 of my daughters cannot stand it, and they think that it tastes like soap. Both of them think it tastes like soap, which I find so weird because it's very lemony flavored to me. And many of you shared on that it is actually a specific gene that causes some people to, specifically with cilantro, although this is probably this way with a lot of things, that makes it taste very disgusting to some people. I absolutely love it. I think it is scrumptious, and I just feel like salsa is not salsa without cilantro. I do have some jars that are cilantro free for those of my kids that cannot stand it. So 2 cups of cilantro. We need 2 cups of lime juice, 1 cup of white vinegar. We need a teaspoon of cumin. I'm gonna add a little bit more than a teaspoon of cumin because I really like cumin flavor in my salsa. We need, how much salt do we need? 2 tablespoons of salt. I have lots of my own freeze-dried oregano from my garden, but I have a couple of packages in my pantry that I need to get used up. Not going to add cayenne. I am going to add a little bit of black pepper if I can find it. There it is. So that was, did I say how much that was? That was 4 teaspoons. And a little bit of sugar, just 4 teaspoons of sugar. I'm going to use brown sugar. It's just so pretty. So I'm going to give this a really good stir, and then we're just going to cook this down for a little bit. While that is heating up, we are going to put together our chili sauce. We are going to get some pickling spice and make a little spice bag out of it. And I showed this in my last video, but this is my favorite pickling spice. So we'll just make a little cheesecloth bag. Okay, we're going to plunk that into our pot here. And into this, we are going to add 18 cups of green tomatoes. What have you been up to? Thoroughly destroyed our clean kitchen. Thoroughly destroyed it. Yes, we will. I was just saying that to Dan. This the one downside of a working kitchen like ours, it has so much cooking going on in it every single day, is that there are always a ton of dishes, especially around canning season. It's a little extreme. Okay, 18 cups. What do we add to here? We add 3 onions chopped up. My onions are curing nicely outside, which is great because normally I have my onions all cured by now, but they were ready late this year, like a lot of other things. And yeah, so anyway, I was worried that it was going to be too cold, but they're curing up nicely. I plan on doing a whole bunch of French onion soup, tons of it. We're actually butchering steer on Thursday, so I'm going to have a whole bunch of bones to make a whole bunch of beef broth, and I use that for the base for the French onion soup, so that's awesome. I have a lot of extra onions chopped up here, so I think I'm going to throw those into the freeze dryer. Bless you. Bless you again. We need some celery. 3 large celery stalks. I have a whole bunch of peppers over here that are all chopped, so that looks about good. And then 1 red pepper. So I mixed the red and green in here together. Need a little bit of cayenne pepper, not too much. This is a very simple recipe. 3 cups of white vinegar. I think this is going to be quite yummy. 1, 2, and 3. I have that canner on for 30 minutes over there, by the way. 2.5 cups of brown sugar and half. And some salt. 2 tablespoons of salt. Okay, we have our 3 stalks of celery in there. This smells so good. Hope it tastes as good as it smells when it is done cooking. So we're going to, smell is going to even get better as that spice bag starts to infuse the juices in here with all of those delicious spice smells. Just gonna get this cleaned up, get some more lids washed up here so we don't run out. Do you know what I can say about the freeze dryer, which I really appreciate in comparison to my dehydrator, is that if I were to dehydrate onions, my whole house would absolutely reek of onion while that process was happening. But I have not found that to be the case with the freeze dryer, which is fantastic because I have been freeze drying like a whole bunch of herbs in there, things that would have a strong scent, and it hasn't been an issue, which is great. So this is also awesome because we're gonna have 4 full trays of onions out of this. So that's an unexpected bonus. Oh, that salsa is very intense. Oh my goodness. So the combination of the lime, of the heat of the jalapenos, and the sourness of the green tomatoes is like an intense burst of flavor, but it tastes super fresh tasting in comparison to a red tomato based salsa. I actually, once I got over the shock of how intense the flavor was, I actually quite like it. So now I'm gonna take these down to the freeze dryer room. So here's what I'm thinking. It's actually 6:45 right now, And I still have all the salsa to finish cooking and can up. I have another batch of the pizza sauce to run through the canner, plus all the chili sauce over there. I don't think I'm going to start on another recipe right now, because as it is, I'm probably going to be up till at least 11 p.m. and I'm actually an early to bed person. Normally I like to rise early and go to bed early. So I'll stay up, get all that done, and then I will cook or maybe do another couple of recipes in the morning, because I have all of the tomatoes that are in the roaster oven over there yet to do. And then a whole bunch more red tomatoes that are ripening in my bins here. I can see I can probably take out enough to do another entire batch of something. I will show you in the morning what we ended up with for all of this. And then we'll get on to at least one other thing, because we have to can up all of the food that is, or all the tomatoes that are in the food, or in the, wow, my brain's already getting tired, in the roaster oven. I haven't decided what I'm going to convert those into just yet. And then I have a whole bunch more ripening tomatoes and ripe tomatoes that I need to separate out from the green tomatoes in all these bins to get canned up as well. So we'll also do that in the morning. I did want to quickly touch on the whole ripening tomatoes inside thing. When I have this many tomatoes, I just leave them in the bins. I go through them every day, pull out the ripe ones, preserve those. And by the end of usually a couple of weeks, most of the tomatoes have ripened. Of course, I do make some green tomato products, but most of the tomatoes will have ripened by then without doing anything fancy to them. You can take tomatoes and put them in a box with layers of newspaper and then cover them up with some newspaper and even throw a banana in there, and that will ripen them faster. But I honestly have found they ripen just fine, just like this, so I don't get fancy, especially when I have this many to deal with. So I will be back with you again bright and early in the morning. Good morning, friends. Well, I suppose for you, this has only been a second, but for me, I had a really good sleep last night. I decided to go to bed at 10:30 rather than staying up the extra time it would have taken to can up the sweet chili sauce. Was it spicy chili sauce or sweet chili sauce? I can't remember. Just green chili sauce. So I decided to can that up this morning to just get up a little bit earlier and get that done. So the last batch is just running through here. It turned out to be more of the texture of relish rather than a sauce. Had I chopped everything up finer or ran it through the food processor into smaller pieces, it would be definitely more saucy, but I like it like that, and the flavor is really, really good. So it's a good recipe, and that recipe was out of, I believe, yes, the Ball book of canning. So what I've decided to do this morning, instead of do more canning, I'll be doing more canning throughout the day, which I'll share with you in the next video, but I decided to make some sweet green tomato bread, which many of you recommended on the last video, so I thought I would give it a try. So we need 2 cups of chopped green tomatoes, which I have been chopping up down here. Oh, I guess I didn't need to prepare that many. To give my knives a sharpen. The recipe that I'm using says that this tastes very similar to a zucchini bread, which my kids love, so I'm hoping that this will be good. I was looking at my bins of tomatoes that are over there this morning, and I don't think I'm going to actually have a ridiculous amount of green tomatoes to deal with, because they are all ripening beautifully. They were able to stay out in the high tunnel long enough to get that ripening process started and ripening up really quickly. So one of my tasks today is going to be to get through all those boxes and get everything separated out. I also have all the tomatoes that are in my roaster oven that I am going to need to take care of as well. I think I'm actually going to turn that one into some more barbecue sauce, because I do use quite a bit of barbecue sauce in the winter time for winter recipes like pork and beans and pulled pork, things like that. Okay, so we need 2 cups of sugar. I'm going to use a mix of white sugar and, whoops, and my counter's going to have some too apparently. This recipe calls for white sugar, but I am going to use a combination of white and brown sugar. So 1 cup of white sugar, 1 cup of brown sugar. So this is obviously a sweet bread. Oil, whatever vegetable oil you use, in this case avocado oil. And into this we're going to add quarter teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda. I am super curious to see how this is going to taste. So I put all my wet ingredients together. I'm just adding all my dry ingredients on top, and I just kind of loosely whisk them and then whisk them together. You can, of course, do your dry ingredients and your wet ingredients separately if you like. Baking soda, cinnamon, and a little bit of salt. A tablespoon of cinnamon. I'm kind of wondering if this recipe is trying to camouflage the flavor of the green tomatoes by all of the cinnamon and the vanilla. We shall see. A little bit of salt in there. So we're just going to put a little splash of oil in our bread pans here. This is a very thick batter. Okay, these are going to bake in the oven at 350 for around an hour. And just a few seconds left until my last batch of chili sauce comes out. I did wake up to a relatively clean kitchen this morning, but it is only 7 a.m. and we are back to it needing to be cleaned again. But we have canned a whole bunch and that feels great. So we'll take these out. I ended up having to use half pints for this because, like I said yesterday, I was out, or I am out of pint jars, but I think that's going to work okay for a condiment such as this. And I did get a lot out of that recipe. So I think we're probably good for relish for the next year. So that's great. I am going to go and sit and have a cup of tea while that bread is baking, but I'll be back with you to show you the bread and give it a little taste test and see how it is when it's done baking. I did end up with around 50 jars of preserves for the pantry, which is absolutely fantastic. And I plan to can probably at least this much throughout the day today. And I will try to film some of that for you so that I can share it with you in my next video. Our bread is done here. So we're gonna slice this up and see how it tastes. We'll need some butter for sure. Texture of it's really nice and it smells good. Just can't really wrap my brain around how green tomatoes are gonna taste good in a sweetbread, but a lot of people say it's delicious, so. There's a lot of sugar, a lot of cinnamon, and a lot of vanilla in this. So that's definitely what most of the flavor is, but it tastes really good. You can't taste the green tomato flavor at all. It's delicious. I think my kids are gonna really love it. I just wanted to show you close up what the salsa looked like once it was cooked down. The relish is very similar, of course, because it's green tomatoes, but it looks lovely. All right, my friends, that is it for us today. I hope that you enjoyed today's video, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye. This is really good, hun.